All right, welcome to AWS Made Easy, episode number 98. I'm Stephen Barr.
Hey everyone, I'm Rahul Subramaniam, and welcome to this brand new episode number 98. Really looking forward to it. Today we have a really special guest who's going to join us. We'll bring him on the screen in just a second, and I'll let Stephen do the honors of introducing our very special guest.
Yep, so today we have Banjo Obayomi. Let's bring him on. And Banjo is AWS Senior Developer Advocate, Generative AI enthusiast, and a friend of mine. We met in Seattle. It's been really great to this live stream's been a long time coming. So thank you. We made the schedule work. Banjo, really appreciate your time. Banjo's given some really neat talks. He's got some good talks on YouTube. Just released on the AWS Developers channel how to use agents with Bedrock. So we're going to get into talking about that. Yeah, Banjo, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me on here. I'm so excited to talk about generative AI. Yes.
It is definitely a super, super cool topic. And it's amazing. I watched your talk that was posted like a couple months ago. I think you did one in Atlanta.
Oh, the vendor ATL conference?
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And I was like, wow, it was only a couple months ago. It feels like where we've come from.
Oh, yeah. That was like ancient time, like last year. Oh, my goodness. So much has changed since then. So.
I was reading about it on like a stone tablet. It's incredible the pace that this is all happening at. So, yeah, I think at that point you said, you're excited for Party Rock to come out. So we've had Party Rock for a couple of months now. Anyway, before we get into the AI talk, just tell us about. Wanted to get to know you for our audience. We see people coming in on X and on LinkedIn, on YouTube. And, welcome, audience. Please feel free to ask questions in the comments. Please tell us about yourself, how you get started. When we were catching up, we realized we actually grew up in pretty close to each other.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Maryland. I live in Potomac, Maryland, but I've always loved video games and computers and like anime and all that kind of stuff. So I've always kind of been in this tech realm. So when I went to college, I just studied computer science. It's kind of like a natural path for me. But I've always loved building stuff. So I've always been making side projects and applications. Like I remember the first app I built was called like Real Life Achievement Tracker. And it was like it was like a Facebook app that you can post things you've done. And I created an iPhone app from that too. So I just love building all these things together. I remember deploying something on Heroku. Like it was just like, wow, like seeing like having somebody download an app on an app store, talk to your server and build things. That's wow, like the whole world, you can just create things. So I've always just loved building stuff. And AI has kind of been allows me to just even build more new things, like things I never even imagined. So just really happy that all this technology is coming to a point where we can reimagine basically every application ever built.
I can quite imagine. Tell us a little bit about your journey to AWS. How did you come across AWS, cloud in particular? And then, your role as a developer advocate within AWS. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So I did computer science. When I graduated, like the first job I had was a big defense contractor. So I said I'm in the DC area, there's all a bunch of defense contractors in the area. So it was kind of like the thing to do. But for me, I really loved like building applications, doing things. So I heard of this thing called Meetup. And I was like, what is this thing? And it was like a DC tech meetup. And it was like, people would go up there, talk about apps they were building. Everyone was so excited to like show what they were building. I was like, wow, like I feel so at home at this. So like, this is literally what I do. So as I got more involved in meetups, I presented a meetup, gave a presentation of one of my apps. I have created my own meetup group, Data Ops DC. Then I created a podcast. I spoke at conferences. So I was doing all this stuff that people associate with developer advocacy, but I had no idea that was even a thing. So like, I've been working as a software engineer the past 10 years, but then I was looking at these new jobs because during COVID, you kind of think about what you want to do in your career. And it's like, I don't want to be a defense contractor. And like this developer advocate role, like, what is this? And I've used AWS for quite a while just because I've been using it a lot. I'm like, I already know AWS. Like I can be a developer advocate. I'm already doing this for free. Why don't I get paid for it? So I applied to the job and here I am. And it's like the best job I've ever had because I'm really doing things I'm doing already for fun. Now I'm just get to do it at scale. So it's amazing.
Oh, that's amazing. And I'm sure the community definitely appreciates all the stuff that you've been putting out. So why don't we dive straight into the most happening thing right now, which is all around generative AI.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your experience over the last year with everything that's been happening with generative AI and how you see the world.
Yeah, generative AI really unlocks that intelligence piece. Like, I remember I tried to make like a resume analysis tool, like maybe 10 years ago when I was playing with Ruby, and I would look at keywords, oh, if keyword
Right.
has Python, they're probably like a Python developer. If keyword has like University of Maryland, oh, they're probably in this area. So like I was trying to like embed intelligence and like if then statements, like do fancy things. But now with generative AI, I can just say, look at this resume, give me the feedback, and then get all that stuff. So me trying to embed intelligence with like very rudimentary things, and generative AI is able to do all that thing, and you can edit that based on what kind of feedback and guidance you have. This really unlocks whole new application space. So this ability to apply intelligence at scale without having to be an expert just opens up so many new possibilities of building things. So it's really exciting. Anybody could be a builder. Yes.
So would you say that was your aha moment, where it was the resume builder, where you could say, wow, this is not just a gimmick. This is something that you can like build with.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I want to ask you yours too. Like, what was your aha moment?
Yeah, the creative aid. So one thing I've always wanted to do is write a book, and I like had a bunch of notes in my like banjo.txt file, and I'll write a book one day. But like I'm too lazy to actually write things down. But if I could put this into like a chat GPT, oh wow, look at all these notes. Can you form a draft from this? Oh, can you actually write a paragraph from this? And it could iteratively build on that. So I was able to actually publish a book for just testing purposes. And yeah, I got 30 pages. Like it was still kind of the older model, so it's not like the best thing, but it just the ability for like, oh, I want to write a book and then be able to leverage generative AI to actually publish something like that. That would have been impossible without me having a tool like that. So just really open up the landscape of things you can build and things you can automate. And this, wow, that was kind of like I don't see myself not using these type of tools ever again.
Wow.
That's really cool. All right, Raul, what about you? What was your moment of like, okay, this is something different. This is a shift.
So, as part of my regular, work as CTO for the group, one of my jobs is to review a lot of technical product management documentation. And I remember about a year ago, I had like a big backlog that I had to go through, and I used one of the generative AI, API to see if I could very quickly just summarize the most important things within these documents, because each document was 16 to 30 pages long. And I didn't really have the patience to go through all of it in great detail. And so I ran about 5 of them through the API. And I was shocked at the level of, summarization and cohesive interpretation of the nitty-gritty details in that document, where I felt like, oh, this is a game changer. Never before had I seen something, assimilate the core essence of a very complicated document like that and present a summarization that I could read up very quickly. And then I started giving it, my decision criteria of what I care about, what I don't care about, and so on. And I could keep refining what I wanted out of that prompt. And that process was a game changer for me.
Awesome. I put a little banner
What about
here.
you?
Yeah, put it in the comments. Mine, I think Banjo is similar to yours. I made this poem about EFS, and I would have never
All
written a
right.
poem about EFS. But I was able to get it started and go back and forth on it, and that was like, okay, I would have never ever done this, and unlocking that creativity. And then also, I remember one other moment where I was thinking back to a project I did where I was trying to automatically match Weird Al songs to the original songs. And I was started by like scraping all of Wikipedia and learning the whole old model of like the semantic web. And I was trying to implement some stuff from this Coursera course I had taken. And it was so much code. And now it was like, I could do this in one question and it's just done. And with agents, I can get it back in JSON. I could probably go find the YouTube video. I could have a dashboard. Like the whole thing would be like a afternoon project.
I have to share, my second aha moment was actually watching that video of you performing that poetry in what is it, the slam style?
Yes. Okay. I'll have to find that out.
Banjo, if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It is really good.
Yes, I'm curious now.
Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, I think you posted it on LinkedIn.
It was a while ago, though.
Maybe nearly a year ago now, is my guess.
Let's see. All right. I will try to find it at some point.
We'll find it and we'll post it over here. So, Banjo, tell me this. From your perspective, what is the latest and greatest thing that has spiked your interest in the field of generative AI? What is it that you are spending your time exploring or evaluating, or figuring out what to do something interesting with that tool? So what would that be?
Yeah, really, I'm enjoying these multimodal models that are coming out. So they're able to process text and images. So the new Claude 3 family model, they can take images, they can take text, and they can understand that and give applications back. So that opens up a whole new world of building things. So being able to embed intelligence on images and extract that to text and take action on that. So that's opens up whole new use cases. So kind of curious about things like what people can build with that. So simple applications like I have an architecture diagram. Can you explain this architecture diagram? I'm sure you've seen architecture diagram like 1,000 different like nodes going up and like what's going on. You can feed that to a model and it can give you a cohesive explanation of what's going on. So that's something applicable today they can do right now. So use cases like that. So I always like to see what are you doing today? You're looking at a lot of images. Can you augment that process using a LLM with multimodal capabilities? So that's something really excited about.
Got it. So Claude 3, you said, any preferences between or any specific insights around when to use Opus, when to use Sonnet, when to use Haiku?
Yeah, so Haiku is very fast and it's very cheap compared to the other one. So I think like 1 million tokens is like less than a dollar. Very something like for something at scale, but the intelligence is slower, but it's very fast. So I would say play around with it. If Haiku can do the job, then it's probably best to use Haiku. But for some more complex tasks, Sonnet would be it's right in the middle. Opus is definitely like heavy duty, so this is only for like very intensive, like I guess thinking, reasoning type tasks. Like if it's something simple, like Opus is very like last resort. Like yeah, so that's kind of my thing. Start with Haiku, see how that is, and then Sonnet is probably the good middle of the line because it's a good balance of speed and flexibility. But yeah, they're all amazing models to be using.
Oh, I was talking with Darko the other day, and it's interesting how even in just the last couple of months, our paradigm has changed. It used to be every time a new model come out, okay, use the absolute best one. And now it's okay, we actually have choices that can trade off this cost and intelligence, whereas we didn't have that just a couple of months ago. It was always just immediately use the best thing. And it reminded me of my first computer. I had a 386 and it had this turbo button, and the turbo button toggled between 8 megahertz and 40 megahertz. Whoa. And so for the old games like Tetris, if you had it in 40 megahertz mode, all the pieces would just zoom to the bottom, right? Yeah. So we no longer are in this go as fast as you can mode, right? Sometimes, or go as expensive as you can. Yes. Sometimes you want to be a little bit slower or just realize the trade-offs you're making.
Yeah, the more I think about it, it feels like there is an unexplored world of very efficient query routers that can decide what the best model for a particular kind of router is, or for a particular kind of query is going to be, and pick from a suite of different models that are best suited to doing those specific tasks. Like we already do a little bit of it. For example, if you're doing embeddings, we typically either pick OpenAI's, embeddings, or you pick one of some of the Cohere ones, or even some of the Claude ones that are available out there. But just generically, there are so many different kinds of questions that get asked out of a model, and you don't need the most heavy duty one for all of them. You need them for some of them. But if there was an ideal proxy router that did that for you, that would be an incredible tool to have.
Yeah, I like to think of this generative AI as like a jagged frontier. Like we don't know like what's beyond the horizon. Some things are great at, some things are bad at, some models are better at this task. So it's really experimentation. So that's why I'm so excited, because like there's no like best practice, quote unquote. Like we're all figuring it out, we're building together. So And you mentioned like a router that can pick different models. I know agents is a kind of a thing that's like, oh, depending on this task, maybe this model is better. But we're still learning, we're still benchmarking. So nothing is set in stone, which is also why everything's so exciting right now.
Tell us a little bit about your most exciting experiments that you've run so far, where you felt like, oh, this is incredible. This actually works.
Yeah. So one thing I like to listen to a lot of books and like want to chat with them, read books. So I played around with a model of taking the full text from a book and then asking questions about it. And then this is on the retrieval augmented generation where I'm able to actually ask questions and get source materials back. So for me, that was also like, wow, like this is amazing. I read this book 3 years ago. I don't remember everything, but like now I can just ask my model, look through the text, find an important question, give me a summary. So use cases like that are like, okay, like this is like adding real value. This is amazing. Like, let's go. So
that's really, really neat. It reminded me, I saw this website called HuberX, where it's taking all of Andrew Huberman's podcasts and live streams, and then it's put them into a RAG, and then you can ask, like, what would Andrew Huberman do? So if you're into, I don't know, certain intermittent fasting protocols or cold plunging or whatever, you could say, like, what would Huberman do about this? And then it's going to query all of the podcasts and it'll actually show, like, okay, in episode 27 of his podcast, he said this. And we're working on putting together something like that for this podcast, this show. So you are going to be part of that.
All right. Perfect. Banjo said this. AI is exciting. Yes.
There you go.
Without a doubt. What about yours, Stephen? What's been your aha experiments?
That is well, okay. If you guys could indulge me for a second, I'll show you the creative thing. I found the post.
That's great.
Let me see if I can. So again, I wouldn't consider myself like a creative person in this way, but this is what I ended up with. Okay. So I asked ChatGPT to generate a poem about Amazon EFS and to emphasize the fact that storage can be expensive. And this is a poem that is talking about EFS intelligent tiering. Okay, get ready for this. Amazon EFS, a cloud-born beast. Data stored, ready for a feast. No more local disks, just infinite space. For data big and small, it all has a place. But storage costs, they spiral high, out of control, up to the sky. Budgets overrun, profits take a hit. Data storage seems like a never-ending pit. Need for more, it does not cease. Data grows like flour and yeast. Storage costs, they escalate so fast, it's a problem that just can't last. EFS, intelligent tiering, a marvel of design, cost optimization of a higher kind. No more manual tiering, no need to fuss. Lifecycle management takes care of that for us. Cold data to hot and fast, AWS makes it all last. For your data access, make sure to request intelligent tiering, truly one of the best.
Oh wow! Okay.
You got to do more of those, Stephen. Definitely have to put out a lot more of those.
All right, sounds good. That was my aha moment. It's like, wow, I could be creative. I could be a poet about this very obtuse subject. I think it's probably the only poem about EFS that exists. Well, thank you for indulging me. I'll repost that on LinkedIn. I think it's time for it to resurface. Here's another. So for people getting started, what do you think about? Oh, actually, okay. I've got too many questions to ask. So I saw. Speaking of chatbots, you made the AWS well-architected chatbot.
Yeah, that was like one of my first things. I talked about retrieval augmented generation, asking this. So the well-architected chatbot actually took the entire documentation from the AWS well-architected PDF, which is like 800 pages. So, and the chatbot can ask any question and it'll look through all those pages and give you an answer back using that as a source. So that was kind of like these chatbots that are embedding intelligence with them so people can ask and retrieve information. I think that is the number one use case I've seen with generative AI. People have a lot of documents, a lot of things, data, and I want to just be able to ask that with natural language and get information back. So I think like that's the hello world for generative AI, like making a retrieval augmented generation bot that can get information. So that was my hello world, and now people are building those type of things every day. You want to make one for your podcast? Like it's like that's the number one use case for generative AI that I've seen people building with.
That's really cool. And then the other one, I guess, that went along with it is the Chat AWS OpenAI or GPT plugin, where you said that you can type in. I really like this example. You typed in, "I want a Lambda function that gives you a random number between 0 and 3,000," and not only did it give you a Python snippet, but you actually had a tool which then deployed it to your AWS account. I thought, wow, that is really cool. And so, are there interesting use cases you've seen, or what's kind of the biggest stack that you've deployed with this thing? That can you say, give me a that would worry. Could you accidentally deploy 10 Lambda functions or 1,000 Lambda functions? Would it give you one function for each number?
When it comes to agent type framework, you have to really constrain what they can do. So in that example, I made sure it only had access to the specific Lambda, the specific S3 bucket. I didn't give it, you're an admin, go wild in the AWS account. So I definitely, that's the thing with the agents. If you give them too much freedom, they're going to get stuck in a loop and get lost and not be able to do things. So the more constrained and specialized it is better. So creating one Lambda function, creating an S3 bucket, I was able to recreate that using LangChain. LangChain made their own agent framework, and I was able to use some of the newer models as well. So yeah, agents are really exciting because you can give them a constrained environment to work in, and they can start building. So, I love builders, so let them continue to build. So yes.
Are there any other frameworks that you looked at for agents or any such tools in their space?
Yeah, so I've only fully played with the LangChain, and then Amazon has Amazon Bedrock agents. So those are, but that's embedded into the Amazon system. So, but the LangChain is more open source. You can play with things. So, but there's so many there. So it's fun to play with these agents and see what they can do.
Yeah, there are a bunch of tools now that are available in the open source domain. You have AutoGen that came out from the Microsoft portfolio, but runs pretty much everywhere. You've got a bunch of other tools and workflow systems that people are building around these. OpenAI, of course, has their own assistance platform.
I remember AutoGPT, but that kind of fizzled out. I don't know if they still have something new now, but I remember that was the big thing, but then doesn't.
Yeah. AutoGPT was basically giving one. It was like a meta agent that tried to do too many things.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
That was its biggest. Yeah, I think that was its biggest failure. So, that you had one persona, one agent that tried to do everything.
Yeah.
And instead, what these guys ended up picking, this is AutoGen. What they decided picking was to have a discrete set of agents that could talk to each other over a chat channel. And you could have the human also embedded in there in that process. So I think that's caused it to get tremendous traction, and it's generally worked very well for most users of it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think constraining the agents, having specialized things is definitely a way to go.
So go ahead.
Oh yeah, I had a blog post about it. I was trying to find it, but
well, while we're talking about blog posts, while you're looking, I put the link to your DZone article. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's the custom LangChain agent one. Yeah.
Here, well, let's put it up on screen for a second. I will share my screen. There it is. Okay. So here is the custom. I put it out in the comments, but then here it is, building custom LangChain agents tools with Amazon Bedrock. Okay, this is October 2023. So
yeah, so it's outdated.
It's so long ago.
I got up.
You modified it.
Oh.
Okay, so you can say you can ask a question like, what does the well-architected framework say about how to create secure VPCs? And then it will give you the key points.
Right. And then it uses a tool. So this is what I really like. I made a customized tool that was able to search through that was 800 pages, and it could actually give you the actual URL to actually look up on the website if you wanted to dive in more. So that's one of the key things. You can get the text and you can get the attribution as well.
So actually, one interesting thing that comes out of just looking at these questions and these cases, I don't know if lately you guys have used Q on the console. And asking these kind of questions off cue to literally create scripts, create IAM roles, create, give you details about the well-architected framework, or even look up specific resources. It is fabulous. It actually does a pretty amazing job of dealing with all the different documentation that exists across, all the different AWS services, and then giving you answers like generating code, generating scripts, generating snippets, telling you exactly what to fix, giving you specific instructions for execution. It's been a game changer. I've stopped going to Google or any of the other tools anymore. When it comes to a very AWS specific question, it's easier to just ask you about it and have it generate whatever you need.
Yeah, so this was done before Q. So I think Q was inspired by my work, So oh yeah, like it's just amazing. Like I like to stay in flow, so the less screens they have to use, the better. So having Q right in the console, IDE provide this basic and then ask questions, get started, look at things, and then really just keep you in the moment.
So before we jump into more details around this stuff, just stepping back a little bit, how do you keep up with this fire hose of information that's coming out in the AI world? What does your daily routine or workflow look like to keep up with all this?
You got to build. Like I mentioned earlier, I love meetups. I go to at least one meetup a week. I'm meeting people, seeing what they're building. I work on my own projects. I recently open sourced a tool that allows you to do RAG locally. It's called Local RAG. So that was fun for me to kind of learn, build something. When I've seen RAG before, it takes quite a bit to get things running. So I wanted to be able to do a RAG framework with 4 lines of code. So that's what this framework does. So that was really exciting for me. It's like I said, chatting with your data is like the #1 use case. So now I made it very easy to just get started because I have a lot of projects using that kind of framework. So
yeah, I'll put this on screen, RAG. Local RAG.
Yes.
And I'll put the link right here. There we go.
So you got to be build, go out, talk with people. I mean, that's really what it comes down. You got to like have that desire, that interest to want to build and see what others are doing, and to kind of just be in that flow. And for me, meetups are a great way to just stay connected with the community and see what other people are doing as well.
No, I love that. I think that could be a sticker. You got to build.
Yes.
I like that. And I love that you mentioned meetups too. That is such a great way to get started. I think, we both live in big metro areas. I spent a couple of years in rural Australia, and people would drive hours to the meetups in the major cities. And then sometimes there'd be meetups in, a lot of the very small regional towns. And you get these incredible collections of people. And luckily now, COVID's for the most part behind us, hopefully. People are a little bit less skittish. So it's great to be able to see people in person again, to meet up, share ideas. Because, sometimes you just go down one particular path and then someone else tells you a way of doing something. And it's just like, I can do it that way.
Okay. I have an interesting twist on how I want to do this next section. Banjo, I'm going to put you on the hot seat and ask you to make choices. Okay. Again, it doesn't have to be, you have to go down doing research around this, but things from your experience that you would pick. So, first question: Claude 3, GPT-4, or OpenAI's models, Gemini 1.5 Pro. Which one do you pick as your first?
I use Claude. Claude AI is great. Yeah. So, Claude, and it's multimodal from the beginning, so I'm all in.
Got it. And are you going straight to Bedrock? Are you going straight to Anthropic's API? Are you going through some?
I'm using Bedrock, because I'm already versed with Bedrock. It's the startup. I've had AWS account for years. Relatively easy. There's a lot of content on how to use Bedrock. You've probably seen some of mine. So Bedrock's a great way. You can run Haiku and Sonnet. Opus is coming soon, so just waiting for that.
Great. We were also very anticipating the launch of Opus 3. Any insider information about when that's coming?
Not that I'm aware of.
We have this team chat bot that every time there's an update to the AWS feed, it posts to our chat bot. I'm always checking that to see if this is the Opus on
Opus release.
Okay, continuing along that theme. So for RAGs, your go-to framework for building a RAG system.
Yeah, I like using my open source library, but underneath the hood that uses Fast, which is made by Meta. I've also seen Chroma been used. There's a lot of different open source ones. Pinecone serverless. So there are a lot of
So those are the vector databases. But what about the framework, the RAG framework itself?
Oh, LangChain. Yeah, I think LangChain kind of got started. I've used Llama Index as well. I know GripTape's another one, but LangChain I'm more familiar with. But it has a lot of integrations, which is nice, but that can become hard to get started. But I've been using it for a while, so I'm kind of know how to build stuff, and that's what I built local RAG on. So,
any thoughts about Bedrock knowledge bases?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you have lots of documents for, let's say, like lots of PDFs, a lot of documents, it's great. If you only have like a couple things, it's probably not worth it. But it's definitely built for lots of documents, PDFs, a lot of things in S3. But if you're just testing something small, then definitely use something like local, use Fast, and just try things out, Chroma, local thing. But as you scale up, that's where knowledge bases really gets that value.
Okay, well, follow-up question that I'm very personally invested in. Okay, so for knowledge bases, so we have, this is episode 98, so we have almost 100 one-hour transcripts plus 100 hours of video. What stack do you recommend? Because we could use, I was thinking about OpenSearch for the transcripts, full text search, and then connecting that to knowledge bases, or what stack would you use? Plus all the blog posts.
You can actually use Aurora too, so PG Vector. So pricing is the thing you're going to be looking once you have a lot of things. So comparing that pricing between open source and having like a Aurora, and how many documents you have, and how many gigabytes. I know you have like 100 PD episodes, but like how many like megabytes or gigabytes is that? So those are the things to consider. So it's
I think you're still not at open source scale, Stephen, with our 100 episodes.
Yeah, if it's not an open source scale, then PG Vector would be good. And that there's a pricing difference.
Chroma DB would work just fine in a lot of those cases where it's a local.
If it's local, you can just run it like on that's a local compute.
Yeah, just Chroma DB should work fine for that.
Well, so this is the question, right? Because OpenSearch in this case works because there's an OpenSearch database already running, right? So that the marginal cost of adding this little bit of text.
If it's already running, then that makes sense. Yeah, if you're starting scratch, then if it's already running, then it's there. Adding another system always adds extra overhead. But if you already have something there, easy to integrate that. Done.
And the total amount of text that we've carried on with is only in the megabytes.
Oh, okay. Then if you already have a system, then that's fine.
Yeah. That's not big enough.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
And we don't have we have video, but it's very much, for the most part, there's not a ton to be gained by the video. Right. It's just talking heads.
It's us here, yeah. When was Banjo on the screen? Episode 98.
I have a video-related question. I'm wondering whether I should park it for a few minutes later or finish up with my set of choices that you've made.
Choices, we like choices.
Okay, let's go back to choices, and then remind me, Stephen, to come back to the question about video. Okay, so back to the choices. I think the last one we stopped at was deciding between or choosing the RAG framework, correct?
RAG framework.
Yeah, so you're talking about Phase and LangChain or Llama Index.
Yeah. So let's dive into the specific vector database, your go-to choice for vector databases.
Yeah, I like Fast, kind of more of a vector index. It's lightweight, easy to get started. That's what I use most of the time if it's just locally on my machine. I know there's a bunch of them. I know Chroma is another one that's popular. But I think at this point, the vector databases are about the same, but once you start scaling up and doing things, that's when the choices come. But if you just have megabytes of data, you're not it's not going to be completely different using database X versus database Y. I think at scale, that's when the choices start to matter. So
they're all HMSW, right? The hierarchical model, small world search, right? Variations on that. Some of them have their own little twists, but it's pretty much a commodity.
Yes.
Right now.
Okay.
Well, and as you said, right? PG Vector, right?
Right.
You already have structured
data. We've been Postgres for how many years? So yeah.
Okay. How much context do you generally use up? Most of the 200K odd context windows that you get with now the Claude family, or OpenAI, or even a million with Gemini 1.5 Pro, or do you prefer to just keep it really short? For example, a simple measure of that is how many documents does your RAG system pull as part of the context when it does a search?
Yeah, I like to keep the context windows small. I know there's like needle in the haystack problem. I know the models say they're better at solving them, but if there's less things in the haystack, and there's probably a better chance they'll look at things. So I think 5 to 10 documents is good, depending how large they are. So it could be maybe 1,000 tokens or 2,000 tokens. I think, like I said, this is all new. There's no best practice, and like this is always going to work 100% of the time. So I know people are looking for that certainty, but I'm going to say you're not going to find it. So you got to play, experiment, see what works best for you, create your own evaluation. I know it's a bigger thing, that all these benchmarks and stuff, and some benchmark might not matter in certain tasks. So it's really about your use case. So you make your own evaluation, do a blind test on that. So that's why it's so exciting to build, because it's endless possibilities. There's no, this is the best answer. There's no stop exploring. You got to keep exploring, keep building, trying things. You're not going to find a golden silver bullet, whatever, nothing.
Got it. Okay, next one. Fine tuning versus RAG.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of fine tuning. I've seen a lot of cases people try to fine tune and better frontier models, better a lot of data trying to do things, and then another model comes out is better than all your fine tuning. So I'm more prompt RAG engineering. I think that might be the one thing I'm more able to put a stamp down compared to everything else. But I know probably certain use cases fine tuning might be good, but most of what people seeing doing prompt engineering and RAG seems to be better.
Yeah, I think in my experience, I found that when it's doing fine tuning is a trade-off. If you have a classification problem,
Sure.
Where you have data that's well labeled and stuff like that, you can run fine tuning on it.
Sure. And you don't even need a large language
run a model. Yeah, so you can do that kind of classification a lot more cheaper than actually doing prompt engineering and RAG in a lot of those cases. And the latencies can come down drastically when you fine tune it. But for most of the cases where you have varying prompts and very varying query types that come into your model, I think you're better off with RAG in almost all of those scenarios. One of the other things that I have noted, and I don't know if your experience has been the same, but whenever we've tried to fine tune any model, the trade-offs are somewhere else. So, for example, you might gain higher accuracy in categorization or latency, but then the quality of the English or the quality of the response just takes a dive.
Yes.
Or you'll find that the way something gets articulated or simple instruction following kind of goes out of the window, unless it's a very standardized, very simple constrained output that you were looking for in the first place.
It's funny. You're reminding me of when you get into a hobby and you start nerding out on the gear that you need, but then you realize that's actually not the limiting factor. And I think fine tuning might be the same thing, right? It's often the case that, like you said, prompting or RAG, or the quality of your information, the organization of your metadata, there are going to be a lot more gains from that. And those gains, to see if I can summarize your point, Banjo, the gains from getting your prompt right, your RAGs better organized, that transfers to any model that comes out. Whereas if you're fine tuning and then another model comes out, all that work in the fine tuning is for naught.
Yes, that's an excellent summarization. I love that.
Awesome. So I'm going to continue down this path. I'm actually really enjoying this this rapid fire format. By the way, completely unprepared. I'm just firing them off as this conversation evolves. Okay, so the next one is going to be SageMaker or Bedrock, your go-to tool.
Well, now Bedrock. I mean, it depends. I know SageMaker, you have more control over the infrastructure, but Bedrock is a serverless API endpoint. So builders just getting started, I want to try generative AI, Bedrock is what I recommend to start off with first.
Okay. Your go-to AI off-the-shelf tool that you spend the most time with?
I guess now Claude AI, really happy with that. So I've been using that, and that's my go to.
And this is in the chat mode.
Yeah, in the chat mode. Yeah, I know there's like a workbench mode, which is also cool, but chat mode is good.
Yeah, the workbench mode is more applicable when you're using the API and you want to play around with understanding how your API is going to behave. I found that to be very useful. Okay, I'm going to come back to the video question and kind of play this in. Have you experienced or done anything with video analysis? Not video generation, which seems to be the big hype. I think the next Stephen's poetic video is going to be AI generated
I'll have some
end-to-end.
Sora stock footage.
Yeah, of course.
Sora generated
Crazy.
some of that. But I was talking about the reverse, where you have video and you want systems to, or you want an AI system to be able to analyze it. Any experience with that?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier how the Claude is multimodal, so being able to take frames from a video and then present what's happening. So when you think of video, it's just like 60 images all at once. So being able to splice that up, so then give me what's happening at each time. I haven't like built a system, but like conceptually, if you have a video, chop it up the frames, find interesting places, and then ask like a multimodal LLM to like describe what's happening, to provide that. That's definitely a use case. I know some people have been playing around with that. Passing video feeds, if anything's interesting, delayed by every minute, so they only ask what happened in 1 minute. So there are things like that are possible to do today. So
I've been playing a lot with Gemini 1.5 Pro, and we had some very interesting learnings. I think our last episode was that the last episode?
Yes.
I've lost track of
Gemini 1.5 Pro.
Yeah, but we learned a ton of stuff as we continued experimenting during the week. And as we realized that even Gemini 1.5 Pro just does the slicing, it takes a bunch of frames that are interspersed in time and tries to do the best that it can with those frames. But it does make a big difference that with Gemini 1.5 Pro, when you have 1 million tokens available for each query, you can fit in 1,000 frames, while Claude 3 only manages about 20 frames. And I think OpenAI ChatGPT is like way worse at about 5 frames. So that's kind of the scale of how each one of these different LLMs are actually able to cope with videos. I wish that there was a mechanism by which the LLMs could actually understand an entire video, not do it frame by frame. Because
not yet, but that'll be pretty. Yeah, that's passing a URL or MP4 file, and then here's it completely analyzed. We're not there yet, but that'll be exciting. Yes.
Yeah. Interestingly, so one of the things that I found about some of these large model layers is they tend to converge to one mode as quickly as possible. So to give you an example, to analyze a video well, a lot of these models not only use the video, they actually separate out the transcript and use transcript as one of the sources. So you have image, which is vision, which is one mode. Then you have the transcript, which is the second mode. And those two modes are basically used to figure out how to answer the question. Now, with a lot of our experimentation with the models, we found something very interesting. The models converge to one of these two modes very quickly. So for example, if we were to take the transcript of this particular conversation and ask the question, what were Banjo's opinions about RAG? Okay. It converges very quickly to the transcript and pulls out all the data only out of the transcripts rather than looking at the video.
So if you had I hate generative AI hat on, it would not take that into account. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. It wouldn't take that into account at all. However, you asked a question, how many speakers on this call were wearing glasses? Okay, it would be able to look at the vision part of it purely and give you an answer that it's 2. But if one of the things we asked in the last episode, so audience, if you haven't checked that out yet, you should check out the demo in our experiment last week. But one very interesting use case was, what if you asked a question of, was Banjo expressing his views or the views of others? Okay, especially when you're reading out some of the content. So, or if I asked a question, was the poem generated by Or was the poem narrated by Stephen live, or was he playing an older video? It would actually not be able to answer that question at all.
Right.
So, because it requires an understanding of the
Right.
transcript that it is a poem, and it also requires an understanding of the context of the image. So, I think that's one of the gaps that these vision. I'm truly waiting for a video model, not just a vision model. So
Yeah, I
that's
think
an interesting.
a new architecture might be needed. We talked about reasoning and understanding, and people say large language models can't reason. Some like they can reason, but like it's more nuanced than that. They can understand like text like that, but having a higher level reasoning and understanding, I don't think the models really are displaying that. So a question like that is you have to be able to take a step back and look at everything together. And the models we have today aren't really capable of doing that.
Yeah, I agree.
I've got a question for you, Banjo. So, as part of the developer advocacy role, you work with people who are getting started in the field, and as they see generative AI, how do you advise people to say how do you work with it? Right? If, like, for example, if you say I want to get started in programming or solutions architecture or some of these things, do you say okay, should young people learn programming or should they learn? How do you balance the usage of AI versus fundamentals?
Right.
Like, I mean, I don't know assembly language, and yet I consider myself a proficient programmer. So how do you advise that for people who are just getting started?
Yeah, I like to say English is a new programming language now. So you can
True.
write prompts, create things, and that will get you started for building application. I think one thing is important. You don't need to be a programmer to build something. So, I mean, I love to code. I love to do things. And I'm not going to say discourage anyone from learning coding. Like I think it'll always be useful, even as AI can write code. It's going to mess up. But there are a lot of tools now that you can actually create prompts. You can embed widgets. At Amazon, there's a Party Rock. So that's like I love Party Rock. That's a great way to build applications without any writing code. You just write prompts. You have different widgets. You can choose different models, play around with things. One useful thing I built was like a system prompt generator. So I mentioned about prompting and creating intelligence for different tasks. My system prompt application, I can just describe the task, and then it'll actually give an actual thing. So my task for my model is like, I want you to be like a programmer. It'll provide me a system prompt I can do for things like that. So I think for people getting started, they want to build using tools like Party Rock to kind of make a simple application. What can you build? Can it solve a problem for you? Use that. Like you don't need to be hands-on keyboard right away, but if you want to do something deeper, then yeah, learning programming is a great way to get started with that.
So I guess I used to find myself almost not reading code as much. Like I'd write a lot of code, but I didn't enjoy reading code. But I find now that as I'm using generative AI, I'm mostly just double checking code. So do you? So what's interesting? So you're saying that you could be a very productive quote builder without actually having to do it by hand.
Oh, totally. Yeah, you can like create applications now without writing code. There are these no-code tools, or if you can even have AI write code for you. If you understand, you can put things in place like generating like sample scripts or describe a function and it'll write this function for you. Like one function I recently did was like I needed to convert an image to base 64 string. Like normally I'd have to look from Stack Overflow, look through docs. I got to say, write a function that takes a pill image and turns it into a base 64 string, and the code's just there and done. Like this, things like that to keep you in flow. So I know, better example, I'm trying to make a video game right now, and I don't know any C# whatsoever. Like, oh my goodness, but I having to put colons after everything and all this. But like, I can say, oh, I want this function for this character to when they move here, they turn red or something, and then AI will write the code for me. I plug that into Unity, and I'm building. Like I'm always want to make a video game, but C# was the scariest thing for me. I don't want to learn that. But I found coding to be the easiest part. Like that's like learning the Unity system is a whole other thing, but the coding part's very trivial now with AI tools. So that kind of unlocks new applications that I probably would have never been able to build without tools like that.
Got it.
I think
sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think that for me, what is your C#? For me, that's CSS. And all of my web pages are HTML1 compliant, and that's about it. So then being able to like take a sketch or a lucid chart diagram and say, give me CSS that makes this work and make this button do this thing. For me, that's like,
Wow.
yes, I could have figured it out, but I haven't in the last 20 years. So probably not.
So, Banjo, a related question to that. Do you believe that a human augmented AI agent is way better off than having a completely autonomous AI agent? Now, why I'm asking the question is today, for anyone who's experimenting with AI, you encounter a situation where the AI will go wrong every now and then, or will start straying into a direction you don't want it to go into. Or alternatively, it generates something and somebody needs to make a judgment about whether that's the right thing or not. Okay, because if you go back to the early days of programming, the reason why programming was created was because English as a language was so ambiguous. Determining exactly what the requirements in pair English meant was starting to become incredibly hard. You couldn't build a machine that could understand that ambiguous nature of an English requirement. Now, the English language hasn't changed much since that time, so the ambiguities remain. But I think the LLMs have started doing a great job of at least trying to predict what the most common interpretation of that statement, English-based statement, is going to be, but it's going to make mistakes.
Sure.
Right?
I always like to say you can't codify truth. So at some point, someone's going to say, okay, I believe this. This is right. This is good. Like you can try LLM, whatever. You can't codify truth.
Yeah.
That's someone's judgment. So yes, a human should be
Correct.
involved, especially when more stakes are high.
So as stakes are getting higher, you put the human in the middle of the process.
Right. Like if it's something that doesn't matter, you can do it again. Fine, have an LLM automate that. But the more things matter, someone can affect somebody, more humans have to be involved. Correct.
Got it. And I'm thinking of, there was one other question that I actually wanted to ask you, and it suddenly slipped my mind because my head was going in 4 different directions.
Yeah.
with those conversations. But it's been incredible, Banjo. Thank you, for doing everything that you do and sharing all of these insights and this conversation. I'm pretty sure, I think we've had an amazing audience over here. Audience, if you have questions for Banjo, please feel free to ask that in the comments. We'd be more than delighted to ask them on your behalf, and I'm pretty sure Banjo's going to oblige and try and get you those answers. So if you have any AI related questions, we have over or nearly 40 folks watching us live right now. This is just the chance that we're detecting.
Yeah, so please put it in the comments. Whatever platform you're on, we're on StreamYard, so it aggregates it all back. So whatever platform you're on, we will see it, and that's why you see me keep glancing left, because I'm glancing at keeping an eye on the progress of things. Yeah, thank you all for being here. Man, I've got another question for you before we wrap up. Custom AWS silicon, so Trainium, Inferentium, right? That's a really exciting time, and it's amazing with AWS's scale. They can actually make purpose-built CPUs in any reasonable amount of time. What do you see the role of that fitting in? Like, how are people using it? And I guess what are the use cases of that, and how is that changing the costs and the possibilities?
Yeah, I mean, hardware very constrained there, and everyone's looking for one particular chip. I want my NVIDIA chip. Like, they can't be the only person that has chips. So other places are building things. AWS, we have our own chips. I know Anthropic's training some of the models using Trainium, Inferentium. These chips are getting better. So yes, having choice is very important. Having other things. So yeah, so they're getting better. They're improving. Like, I'm excited to see how this space evolves, especially because more builders are coming on, going to need more hardware to support these workloads. So exciting.
Excellent. One last question from me, Banjo. As someone who's playing around with AI, I think a common theme that runs across everyone who's in the same boat as us is that the per unit cost of AI workloads is about 10x that of the more traditional compute workloads, right? Anything from training or inferencing is going to be more expensive. The hardware is more expensive. So everyone is starting to see costs kind of go up. What are your top 2 or 3 tips that you would say everyone should look out for as they are experimenting with
Yeah, I would say
new
most,
AI-related use cases.
yeah, I say most people probably aren't going to be training their own like large language model. Be mostly utilizing them. So the API layer is never been easier for builders to get started. I would say look at tokens. Tokens is really the thing. The output token. It's not like you're leaving a database running and like you get a surprise bill, which happened to me before. But like with the API, you send something back and that's it. So I think for experimentation and building, I'd say it's cheaper. It's never been easy to get started. You can even use tools like Party Rock where you don't have to put a credit card or anything and you start building right away. So I said this is the best time to be a builder. I'm not worried about cost or I'm so excited to see what people are building.
That's excellent advice.
I love it. And I will add, for personal experience, OpenSearch serverless. If you're going to use that with your RAG system, remember serverless does not mean scale to zero. as you pointed out to me earlier in the show, OpenSearch it's like Kubernetes, right? When you need it, you know you need it.
Right.
Yes.
And so maybe I will wait and use a simpler solution.
Sure.
I think the same holds for Bedrock knowledge bases and so on. I'm just going to pile on one more piece of advice, which is whichever service you're using. Okay, number one, if you're not using them, ensure that the service somehow scales down to zero. Now, if it's just an API, it's kind of inbuilt in the way the pricing works. You can assume that scale down to zero. But if you're actually using something that's managed or hosted, make sure that it has the ability to scale down to zero. That's going to be really, really important.
Yeah, I like to test things locally on my machine first. It works on my machine before then scaling to the cloud. So that's always one. Make sure I can work on my machine. I can control. I can understand what's going on. Run a vector database locally on your machine before you need to scale it up. So that's really I like to start small, then start getting bigger. So yes.
Well, awesome. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much.
For being an hour here already. Wow.
Time flies with these conversations. I tell you, I can't believe we've done nearly 100 episodes. It just feels like just a few weeks ago, it felt like we were just starting this whole process. Turns out it's almost 2 years.
Yeah, we had an iPhone on a stick and a microphone I dug out of the spare parts box, and now it's slightly better
it's a
set
studio.
up for that.
Oh yeah, look at that on air.
There you go. All right, thank you again, Banjo. Really appreciate it. And then, how do people find you?
You can find me on X. Ban's the man. I'm also on LinkedIn. Post a lot on LinkedIn. I'll drop these links here. You can post them.
Awesome. All right, I'll put your X link. Let's put this in the comments.
And then LinkedIn, I gotta find that real quick.
And also, I think it'll be easy to find you just by full name.
Oh yeah, Banjo Obayomi. Yeah, I post my LinkedIn and Twitter X. Yeah, that's the best way to stay in contact with me. Right, I have a newsletter on LinkedIn, so you can follow my newsletter on LinkedIn, and I talk about all sorts of AI stuff. Yes.
Cool. All right, we'll put the links in the video description. I'll get that updated. Follow Banjo, his newsletter. And yeah, thank you for being such a great source of information. We really appreciate your time. And thank you, audience, for being here. We really appreciate that as well. All right. Any other closing thoughts? Otherwise, we'll wrap up the episode.
Go build.
Thanks again. Yes, go build something. I think that's the takeaway from this show. Build something, you'll learn something new. And yeah, keep subscribe to this channel. Send us your feedback, send us your comments and questions. So that we can bring you the most relevant content that's going to help you build more.
All right.
Thanks,
Have
everyone.
a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Some tools just find AWS cost savings and make you do all the work. Visualizing cost opportunities is great, but that's not enough. CloudFix, on the other hand, actually delivers those savings for you And you don't need to worry because CloudFix fixers are AWS recommended and easy to use. It's the only tool that fixes cost savings opportunities and doesn't just find them. It's the easiest way to save money on AWS. It's all 100% automatic and risk-free. And the best part is that it works non-stop. See for yourself. Click on the button to get a free demonstration of CloudFix and stop overspending on